Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the second version of the update 1.87 dev server, and it's time to have a look at one of the new premiums that is coming to the game. This is the F-86F-40 JSDF. It is a rank 5 battle rating 9.3 vehicle, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to buy this thing to grind out this monstrosity right here. So, what is this? Well, if you've ever played the Japanese tree and got to this level here, this is the F-86F-40. The premium version is literally the same thing, apart from it has a different skin. So if you have any time in your life used the F-86F-40, then you've used this. Now, the nice additions that this brings along for the F-40 in general is the same as a lot of them. So what is kind of nice is with the addition of this premium, we have the addition of AIM-9B Sidewinders to a lot of rank 5 jets, and this is one of them, the F-40, and therefore because this gets it, the standard tech tree vehicle gets it as well. And this is a nice thing that has just happened, not really organically, but over time with these types of vehicles. The only one which hasn't benefited from this is the ones in the, when it comes to this one right here, the Votor 2A, compared to the 2A IDF, because the IDF actually uses, specific Shafir AA missiles. That's not right. Guided missiles. Let's just go for that. AGMs. So back to the F-86F-40. What you're seeing here is just another Sabre, which has slightly different wings compared to a lot of them, meaning that its roll rate is a little bit better and its max speed is a little bit less. That is the way to see it. The armor values on it, we have 6mm on the front with the 6mm behind, bulletproof glass of 38mm, and 13mm behind the cockpit, plus a little screen of 20mm thickness, so nothing crazy. Then it has in it a General Electric J47 GE27 jet engine, along with some fuel tanks, which there are only 4 of them. Normally, when you see these vehicles, instead what you have is just fuel tanks all over the place, e.g. the Mitsubishi T2. So with this, it's kind of surprising that it doesn't have a ton of fuel tanks, but it is nice to see that they are at least in the center, so it shouldn't really affect too much of your roll rates. On top of this, it has access to the 650 cals. I'm still personally wondering if 6 M3s or 2 DEFers is the way to go, or 4 DEFers even. DEFers have a really high fire rate, they do really well, and they do a lot of damage, but so do the M3s. I know a lot of people like to complain about the M3s, but they're still really, really good compared to other ammunition or other guns out there. The 12.7mm that you have on this thing do have access to the tracer belts, which I would always recommend, the APITs, which are pretty much the lasers of the skies. And remember, because this is a premium vehicle, at the end of the day, you get all of the modifications for free, and you also get a nice little booster. As you can see, with my premium, you have a 720% SL gain, plus a 600% RP gain right now on the dev server. Crazy stuff. And what this means, right now, do I have a booster going? No. Okay, that's even more crazy. So yeah, 600% on the dev server, I should say, which is insane for grinding out vehicles. Now, because this thing is 9.3, we're going to have to start having conversations about, whether it's just going to see 10.0s all day or whether 9.0 will actually become a thing. But one thing I want to do before we do that is just talk about the customization. So there are no extra camouflages on this, which is completely fine. But for me, when I look at this camouflage, I know it is quite historically accurate. The problem is the contrast. So I've talked about this a lot before. A lot of people have pointed out in the videos that I've done before. I really like shadows. So you can see right here, it's very obvious where the shadows are on this machine. If we have a look at the M1 Abrams, you can see where the shadows are. They're very black, and a lot of people have pointed out this isn't a good thing because they struggle to see stuff. That's fair enough, I disagree. And with the Mitsubishi T2, you can see the really well-defined everything pretty much because of the contrast I have going. With this machine, it is fadey. With the green and the brown and the, I suppose you call it beige, there isn't a hard contrast. For me, I would like to turn it up by about 20, maybe 30, and make the green pop and make the brown pop instead of what it is right now. But that is just a personal choice, which I would like to say. So let's go in and test this thing out, show you guys the ropes when it comes to this saber. A lot of people will talk about how machines like this are very good in the game, and I would agree. The sabers in general are wonderful machines. There is a reason why the Canadair saber, plus the American saber, plus the Japanese saber, dominated the meta top tier for a very long time. They are great machines. The only way to deal with them is obviously with superior something, which the MiG-17 was able to do with speed and also energy. And nowadays, since we've hit the supersonic era, we now have a new daddy in town. And this is the problem, right? So, this thing is at 9.3. The Canadair Sabre is at 9.3. I definitely don't think this is anywhere close to the new Canadair Sabre in performance. It's literally designed after it. It's designed to be better than it. And we are sat in a situation where, because of this machine being at 9.3, basically because it has sidewinders, because before it did not have sidewinders, and it was at 9.0, talking about the non-premium version, we're sat in a place where this thing is going to lose pretty much all of the edges that it had. What it was great at back in the day was its rolling, and it was also great at its high-speed maneuverability, and it was great at its turn, and because of that, it lost a little bit of speed because of it, right? And that was fine, because what matters, in my opinion, more at top tier is acceleration, especially when we look at the general meta, instead of top speed. I think now we might go into a place where top speed actually means a little bit more, but the maneuverability of this aircraft is still going to be great. You know, it's still going to be really useful. I just hope that with this machine, we don't see a scenario with machines such as the F-100, the MiG-19, even others which may come later on, because you've got to remember, these premiums are more of an investment than anything else. And I know a lot of people are getting it for the T2, but you got to think about what's going to come next, what's going to come after the T2. Is it going to be a scenario where this thing will be able to hang? And I think a lot of the time, probably, it will be able to dodge a lot of shots. But what about it being in the offensive scenario? What about it being in the aggressive position? And that is where we start having doubts about stuff, right? Like, it is very easy for this machine to out-duel a MiG-15, if you know what you're doing. If the MiG-15 pilot is good, it may be a little bit harder, but you still should be able to do it. What if you, adding to the mix, a machine which has way more acceleration than you, has a higher top speed than you, and has better missiles than you? I'm talking about the MiG-19 PT, I'm talking about the MiG-19S, and I'm talking about the F-100, which will be this thing's main competitors. I know a lot of people will want 9.0 to be a thing, and I'll be very glad if it ever does become a thing. The problem is, we saw in ground forces and air forces, remember, but mainly in ground forces, a big push to make 9.0 BR when there was 10.0s. Basically, we're talking last year, half of last year. There was a big push by Gaijin to create a lot of 9.0 vehicles to make 9.0 a BR that people play. It didn't happen, because what happens is all of the 9.0s get dragged up. They get dragged up into the scenarios such as 10.0. And now you're adding in a 9.3. Remember, the Rise was a 9.3. And what happens to it is it gets dragged up. And it will get dragged up into these supersonic jets, and yes, it will have its maneuverability. Yes, you can maybe use that to your advantage. But overall, just seeing if it works there. Overall, you're going to be left with a vehicle which has a really good turn rate, a decent acceleration, but is going to be left in the dust. And if you're okay with that, fair enough, if you're okay with having slight advantages somewheres, but when you come up against those really good players, they're gonna run circles around you. Fair enough. And at least since you're a Japanese vehicle, you don't have to worry about one of the biggest issues that is going to be, which is of course the wonderful, the wonderful Mitsubishi, which I'm sure everybody is going to try and grind for. So at least you got that going for you. I just hope that 9.0 does become a VR where people can actually play against each other. But the history of War Thunder does not allow me to make that statement, because of the fact that they tried to do it in tanks. It didn't work. Remember the trials and tribulations of playing 8.0 8.0 air vehicles back in the day? Where basically you have a scenario where 9 out of the 10 of your matches, you are dragged up to top tier. Well, for me, when I look at this Sabre, I see exactly the same thing. I see, whoop, okay, we're good. Had a bit of lag there. I see exactly the same thing. I see a scenario where this machine gets dragged up every time, and it gets battered by the things that are above it. And it will be saved, and it will be bailed out a lot by the Mitsubishi T2. And if you're using it to grind for the T2, fair enough, you know, have some fun with it, enjoy life, you know, enjoy the crazy acceleration and speed of that vehicle. But just understand that while playing this, you will not be top dog, and you will not have a lot of advantages over vehicles that you're facing. At least you don't have to deal with the stock grind. And I would actually say the F-40, in terms of a Sabre, is one of the F-40 is one of the best Sabres in the game, right? Wow. The only thing that I would say is better than it now is the Canadairs. But it is a close call between this and the Canadairs. So you got that going for you. But there has to be a discussion about if you want to use this thing against 10-0s. And I'm sure a lot of people will, because of the crazy research you can get, and because of the Silver Lions, but my god, is it going to be frustrating. Having to constantly defensively fly, and having no control over the battle, instead waiting to see what the enemy does, and then you reacting to it. Which can be really useful. It can be a wonderful way to play the game. There are certain aircraft that are great at it. The Spitfires, for example, are great at this. But half the time, or the majority of the time, it is not fun playing like it. It really, really isn't. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I'll see you next time.